Hi there, Stampin' friends. Welcome to Stampin' Peace with Mary Knabe. Happy Monday. Hope your Monday and your week is off to a great start. And hopefully you had a great weekend as well. Mine was wonderful. On Friday, I went to the OSU men's hockey game with Andrea and John. Those games are always lots of fun. And of course, it's always good to spend time with family. And then I worked a little bit on Saturday morning, and then I drove to Cincinnati and visited with Emily, and we went to a party for a friend, which was a lot of fun. Met some people I have, or reunited, I guess, with some people I had met previously, and met some new people there. So it was a lot of fun. And then I spent Saturday night at Emily's, visited Jackie from my team on the way home, and that was it. So a full weekend. I took a nap when I got home about 3 o'clock on Sunday afternoon. So it was a great weekend. I hope yours was too. Before I show you today's technique and make 2 cards with you, I want to give a reminder that tomorrow, March 8th, is the last day to register for my Easter Friends Class to Go. With that, in option 1 for $42, you'll get the Easter Friends stamp set. You'll get everything you need to make 4 cards, 2 each of 4 designs, or you'll make 8 cards, 2 each of 4 designs. You'll get the PDF tutorial sent by email, and the price includes shipping. Option 2 is $28 and everything the same, except you do not get the stamp set with option 2. So if you already own it, or you're a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator and will be purchasing that on your own, option 2 is for you. And last but not least, option 3 is always the PDF tutorial only for $15. So great value, fun, beautiful spring cards. Great for Easter. You could even use these for baby cards. You could send them out for spring birthdays. You can send them to children. There are so many ways to use these fun Easter/spring cards. So last day to order those, order that class to go is tomorrow, March 8th. It's been the best selling class I've had yet this Stampin' Up! Year. So I'm super excited about that. What else is going on in my life? Oh, my registration for my October Creative Escape Weekend in Cincinnati opened up a few days ago, and it's already sold out. So I'm thrilled. Sold out with 60 people. So that's exciting. And keep in mind, we do have our Savings in Bloom promotion going on, and that is you can get the mini Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine for 20% off the retail price of $60. So you pay just $48 for the mini machine. And then there are, let's see, 3, 6, 9, 12, 15 bundles, stamp set die bundles that you can use with your mini Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine, which are also 20% off for this limited time only for the month of March. And information about that can be found on my website, stampinup.com or stampinpeace.com. It's also in my online store, maryknabe.stampinup.net. So, those are all the reminders I have for you today. I'm going to flip my camera around now so that we can get started creating. And while I'm doing that, I ask that you share this live video and invite others to join us this afternoon. Okay, love watching all the names pop up on here. That's wonderful. Today we're going to be working with these colors. I won't be using all these inks, but they are the featured colors for today's demonstration. And does anybody recognize these? If you could give one name to all these grouped together, what would it be? Oh, thanks to all of you who have shared. I appreciate it so much. These are the 2020 to 2022 in colors. Bumblebee, Cinnamon Cider, Just Jade, Magenta Madness, and Misty Moonlight. Okay, so we are in the last bit of their 2-year stint in our product line. So if you want any of these, you should buy them soon. If you own the ink pads but not the refills, I would suggest you purchase those now. And Stampin' blends, they all have Stampin' blends except Bumblebee. Cardstock, ribbon, whatever there is in these 5 colors, you should get now, because those items will definitely be retiring. I will miss them. Yes, I agree with you, Tina. I use these colors a lot and I love them all. I love them all. So, but we'll have another round of in colors being introduced, and I'm sure, I don't know what they are yet, but I'm sure they're going to be wonderful as well. Keep in mind, our retirement list will probably come out later this month, later in March. Once that hits, many of the in color things go very, very fast. Some of them within hours. And, you know, cardstock, the ink pads. So, and they typically are not discounted. I can't guarantee that they won't be, because things always change, and I won't find that out until the same time you find that out. But if you really, really want them, I would not wait till you see them on the retired list, because they may go fast and you may miss getting them, okay? And today I also am using my silicone craft sheet. If you have one of these, this is an excellent tool to be using with today's technique. Today's technique is the floating strips technique. And with the floating strips technique, we're going to use some of this window sheet. Window sheets can be found in the annual catalog. There are 2 12 by 12 sheets in a pack, and you can find them in the annual catalog. I went ahead and cut this one down to 5 1/4 by 4 inches because I want this to be the layer for my card front. And then I have a bunch of strips. These can be scraps you have around. These can be strips that you cut specifically to the colors and the sizes you want. It can be anything, but it's a great way to use up strips as well. One thing I started doing when I'm cutting cardstock for anything at all, I keep this handy, because when I have these skinny strips, I just dump them right into this little container. So, you know, many times we've introduced techniques and ways of using up some of your scraps. So this keeps all your scraps, I should say your strips, your skinny strips handy. My other scraps I do keep with the packs of cardstock, but skinny strips I started putting in there. So as you can see, I've used all of these 2020 to 2020 in colors. And I'm going to just adhere them to my window sheets. Mine are going to be in random order, but if you would like, you can always make a pattern. You know, maybe you're going to pick 3 colors and you can make a pattern with those 3 colors. You can do them randomly. The strips can be the same size width, or they can vary in width. I've chosen 5 different colors and mine do vary in the width. I want them to be, all my strips need to be at least 4 inches long. If they are longer than the 4 inches, that's okay. We'll trim them off later. But I like to do mine kind of, oh, that seems a little short. I like to do mine kind of randomly when I have lots of colors, but really it's just your personal preference. And I typically like to keep the spacing between the strips pretty even. I might vary it a little, but that too should be done to your preference. Oh, here's a good example of why I'm using the silicone craft sheet, because I have glue all along the back side of this strip, which I did not need to do. But now that glue is going to stay on my silicone craft mat, which is super easy to clean up versus any other surface the glue would get on, especially this tacky multi-purpose glue. And the reason I'm using multi-purpose glue is it gives me the opportunity to slide my strips around, to straighten them out, to change the spacing if I want to. So I've started at the top, but before I continue, I want to put one at the bottom as well. Rather than end up with just a maybe too big of a space or really too small of a space when I get to the bottom, I want to go ahead and put a strip on now, because then fitting in a random strip will be easier for me than trying to measure one out. Oh, I think we need a yellow here. So I'm adding some bumblebee. Again, if your strips are too long, it's okay. You don't need to worry about it until after you get all your strips in place. Those two strips happen to be the same width. You can see it really goes quite fast if you already have all of your strips cut, or if you've pulled from your bin of skinny strips. Okay, I'm getting pretty close to filling in the whole space. So now I'll make a decision. Do I want to do like one wide piece or a couple of smaller, skinnier pieces? Okay, that's really too much because now I don't have enough spacing in there. So it's going to be 2 skinny strips going in here. Putting strips at top and bottom to begin with also helps me put my strips evenly across, straight across. It just gives me some better perspective as I'm adding these if I work from both top and bottom. You can see that some, oh, let me pull this off. You can see that some places, it takes a little bit for this glue to dry, but you can see in some places I've got a little more space, in other places the space is smaller. So again, that's just your personal preference if you like them to be evenly spaced or you like the randomness of it. And then I'm going to let these dry just a minute because I'm going to trim off these edges. I'm going to show you 2 ways to do that, but I'm going to let that dry really well first. And while that's drying, I'm going to punch white cardstock with the large daisy punch. And I'll also put these together. with our multi-purpose glue. That way I can move this top flower around until I get it centered between the other petals. And then finally, I'm going to punch a piece, and I can use one of my strips to do this. I'm going to just punch a 1/2 inch circle. Unfortunately, our 1/2 inch circle punch is retired, but you may have that. You might also choose to use some kind of embellishment for the center of your daisy, which I often do. You could also choose to color the center of your daisy with any of our coloring tools, Stampin' blends, Stampin' Write markers, our watercolor pencils, anything like that. So now I want to do some trimming here because I want all those edges to be nice and straight. So one way you can do this is, and I'm going to go this route from the top. Really, you can do top or bottom. And I want this piece to measure 4 by 5 1/4, which is what I cut it to before we started. So I've got the left edge lined up at 4 inches, and I'm just going to slowly cut off these ends. Just like that. Another option you have is to simply use your paper snips. And when I'm doing this, I just let that top blade of my paper snips be right along the window sheet, and I snip off those ends. So easy peasy. If your glue happens to be a bit wet still, you'll want to make sure that when you're finished with your project, you do wipe off the paper trimmer and your snips with just plain water, and a paper towel should do it. And now I'm ready to put my card together. I'm going to mount this on basic white thick cardstock. I like the thick for card bases because it just stands up better. Who's on? Hi, Margaret from Virginia. Nice to have you. Margaret, what part of Virginia are you in? I have a brother that lives near Harrisonburg in the Shenandoah Valley. Isn't that pretty? Now I can do anything I want with this. Oh, Lisa, yes. Alcohol wipes are great for wiping stickiness from your tools. Absolutely correct. So I'm just going to add this daisy with a Stampin' Dimensional. Whoops, cut these apart. Here we go. Now I laid this the floating strips, I laid this flat on my card front, but in the next card I'm going to show you a variation of that. And let's bring in some greens. Sticking with my color scheme, I'm going to pull out some Just Jade cardstock. This is one of our newer punches from our mini catalog. And I think I'll put these on with mini glue dots. Just gonna put a couple on. I don't think I need to put them on every leaf. Hey there, Sue Thomas. Thanks so much for sharing this live. I appreciate it. Whoops. Okay, so there's my finished card. I can even use this horizontally if I want. Add a simple sentiment and it's ready to go. You could even stamp your sentiment on the inside if you choose. Now we're going to use the strips again and add the floating element to the strips, okay? This time I just adhered it flat to my card front. I'm also going to show you a couple other variations on the floating strip technique as we make the second card. Let me get these out of the way. Okay, once again, I've got my silicone craft sheet ready. This time I've cut my designer series paper to be 4 inches by 4 inches. And I'm actually using designer series paper for my strips. So I'm going to now cut my strips from this piece of 4x4 designer series paper. I cut this DSP the same size as my window sheet. It's actually going to take up a little less than that because of the spacing between the strips. But if I cut it the same size, I know for sure I have the right amount, okay? And then I'm just going to cut some random strips here. I'm going to do a 3/8. I usually try to keep it at 3/4 and smaller. So 3/8, 3/4. I'll do a 1/2. And a 1/4 inch. Now when I'm doing designer series paper, I like to actually keep my strips in order. Here's a 5/8 inch. I like to keep those strips in order. So it kind of, how do I want to say? It kind of just makes a picture instead of getting those pieces all jumbled up. Again, that's your preference, but I think it just gives a really cool effect if you know what, I'm not going to cut the bottom one just yet because I want to be sure it's going to be the right size for me. For this one, because I want, did I mix those up? Because I want the strips to be in order, I'm not going to cut any more until I get close to the bottom, because then I'll be able to tell how much I do need in order to keep the picture the same. It would look a little funny if I had all the strips in order and then the last one was a little funky because I didn't have the right size and I'm trying to fill it in or trim something off. It really is quite an easy technique. Use your multi-purpose glue to make it even easier to adhere those strips. As you can see, it gives me a little bit of wiggle room there if I want to change the spacing or I need to straighten out a strip. It's easy to do that when I'm using multi-purpose glue. And it takes a little bit to dry, but not long at all, as you can see from watching me make the first card. And if you keep your strips laid out in order as you're cutting them like this, oh, it's so much easier, so much easier. We don't want to create stress for ourselves, not when it comes to crafting. I guess we don't want to create stress for ourselves anytime, do we? But especially when you're crafting, it should be fun and relaxing. Something that gives you pleasure and gives you a sense of accomplishment as well. And it's a nice escape from everything else that's going on in the world. Oh, Sue, that is a good point. If you don't have the window sheets, you can use, let me see if I have one here. You can use the acetate sheet that your photopolymer stamps come on. Because you're covering up most of that, you can kind of see it, but you can just wipe it with a soft cloth, and you'll be able to use that as your window sheet. Great tip there. All right, so this last one, I want to go ahead and measure this. And it looks like I can do 3/8 of an inch nicely. Let me make sure I have this in the right direction. Yes. It's nice when we can reuse and repurpose things like that acetate sheet in our photopolymer stamp sets. This is the Sweet as a Peach DSP. Oops, it could have been a little bit wider, huh? But that'll be okay. I wonder if I can, oh, I can still slide this down a little bit. Okay, so my spacing's gonna be a little wider at the bottom, but that's all right. Now, instead of adhering this square of strips, I'm actually going to die cut it. I'm so sorry, I forgot to get out my machine here. Okay, this is a little bit wide. I'm going to use the largest circle, and I'm actually going to cut down my square just a little bit so that it fits in my mini Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine, and that looks good. So I've cut it down from 4 inches to 3 3/4, and then I know it will fit in there. And I forgot to grab the cutting plates. Won't work without those. All right, so when I'm die cutting with my mini machine, I'm using plate 1 and 2. I'm putting down my paper and then my die on top of it. The edge side, the ridge side, is the, I guess I overestimated the size of this large circle when I did 4 by 4, but that's okay. And then you want another cutting plate number 2 on the top. And because it is going through not just the paper, but also the window sheet, I'm going through it, taking it through the die cut machine more than once. All right, and then just carefully push it out. That trimmed out pretty nicely. You can see I got a little edge of paper that floated under there. That's all right, but look at how nice that looks. And now I was going to put this on a white card base, but you tell me, should we put it on something different than a white card base? Oh, I think we should. The other thing I think we should do is mount this on that green. And let's see which green that is. I'm thinking, is it Old Olive? Old Olive would work, yes. So I'm going to die cut one of these scallop circles. That looks like it's big enough. Bring my mini Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine back in. So I've used the largest plain circle and the largest scallop circle die cuts. Now here, instead of adhering it flat like I did on the first card, I'm going to pop it up on dimensional. So this is where we get the floating part. It'll look like those strips are floating on the card front. And I want to put my dimensionals where they're going to be hidden. So I want to make sure they're completely on the designer series paper part. I don't want them to be showing between the spaces, or in the spaces between the strips, I should say. Isn't this pretty paper? I haven't pulled it out for a long time, and I got to thinking earlier today about all the products, the papers and things that we'll be retiring, and I anticipate that this one will be, so I thought I really should be using it. All right, so should we put this on a white card base, or would you like to see it on something different? Thoughts? How about, let's see what it looks like on Pale Papaya. Oh, that's pretty. The white is very bright. It's kind of bam. I think this kind of will tone the whole thing down. And then I will simply add that. Now again, I didn't have to put the scallop circle behind it. And if I didn't, the Pale Papaya would show through the window sheet. And of course it's floating because I put it on Stampin' Dimensionals. I'll put that there. And then I'm going to choose a sentiment from the Sweet as a Peach stamp set. And, oh, I don't know what to choose. How about, let's do the happy birthday. So we always need those, right? Everybody has a birthday, so we always need birthday cards. And trying to think, what color do I want to? I'm actually going to, let me go to my strip basket here. And I'm going to stamp this with Old Olive. What are you thinking? Do you like the strip technique, and do you like the cards? Let me stamp that one more time. Wasn't quite even, and I think I'm getting out of the viewing shot here. Oh, that's better. And now I'm just going to snip the other end so it's approximately the same spacing as the right. And then I'll punch each end with my very favorite Banner's Pick-a-Punch. Does anybody have this? This is like such a go-to punch for me. I love that Banner's Pick-a-Punch. Okay, I'm gonna put it right on there. I'm also going to float this up on dimensionals. Oh, lots of you have that punch and love it. Yes, please do try this technique. I think you'll be surprised at just how easy it is. And it really gives a nice dramatic effect that those receiving your card lovers will love. They'll probably be a little stunned, actually. And I feel like I need a bow on here. Oh, is that the right color? Let me see. This is, oh, that's petal pink. It's not pale papaya. Here we go. This is the match. Love me some sheer ribbon, super easy to work with. This looks a little long for me. And I'll just adhere this with a mini glue dot right there. I think that looks pretty. What do you think? Now keep in mind, we did the whole strip technique on the window sheet, but we didn't pop it up. We just adhered it flat on this card. You could change this up by putting it on dimensionals as well, okay? All right, I love how this turned out. I think we should add a happy birthday to this as well. So I'm gonna go back in here and pull white, and this time, instead of stamping with Old Olive, I'm going to stamp with, I think I'll stamp with the Magenta Madness. Oops, that's vanilla, that's not white. Here we go. Nice. And I'm going to use the other side of my Banner's Pick-a-Punch. You know, I feel like that's a little bit close to the punched end, so I'm going to re-stamp on the back side. Yeah, I like that better. And I'm going to trim off a little bit here. And then I'm going to adhere this to the card front. I'm actually going to tuck it under that daisy a little bit. Let's do like this, I think. Okay. So what do you think? Would anybody like to win one of these cards? I think today I don't know which one to give away. I'm going to give away this one with the floating circle on the pale papaya. So if you would like to win this card, please type in the comments now, floating strips. Floating strips. Okay? And remember, this is a great way to use up scraps, those skinny little strips you have from cutting different layers for your cards. It's also something you can do to use up small pieces of designer series paper you have left. And you don't have to use scraps and leftover DSP. You can choose your colors of cardstock and choose your DSP to fit the occasion you're making cards for. All right. Let me put some basic white on the inside so that whoever wins this card will have it all ready to go, because they can put their message in right away. And I do hope that you're sending cards. When you're winning cards, when you're making cards, please send them. That's the best part. That's the best reason for us to make cards, is to spread happiness to other people. Everybody loves to be thought of, no matter the occasion or no occasion at all. Alrighty. Thank you for joining me on this Monday afternoon. I'm so happy that you were here. A final reminder that these 5 in colors will be retiring. So if you want any of these in color products, you should purchase them soon, including ink refills. I can't get them for you later, okay? Magenta Madness, Bumblebee, Cinnamon Cider, Just Jade, and Misty Moonlight. If you want any products in those colors, I highly suggest you purchase them soon. And actually before they hit the retirement list, because when that happens, they typically do sell out very quickly. All right, any questions for me? Oh, Pam, you're welcome. You have a great week. Jenny and Pam, I'm happy you're sending out cards. I'm sure many of the other viewers are sending cards out as well. I don't know, there's just something neat about the whole process. We get to create and we get enjoyment out of that, and then we send our cards off to somebody else and that person gets enjoyment as well. Alrighty, I will see you Wednesday evening at 8 p.m. and I'll have another fun project for us. Take care until then. Happy stamping.